Hi, I'm Kathy Dodson.
And I'm Jocelyn Lindsay. Welcome to another episode of 5-Minute Author Indie Insights, publishing tips and tricks, because if we don't cut ourselves off in 5 minutes, we will keep talking for hours and hours.
And that could actually be a problem today because we have a special guest. Our proofreader, Lori Diederich, is here to tell us more about what is proofreading, line editing, when does it occur in the process. So Lori, welcome to our program. We're thrilled to have you here. And we'd love it if you just start out by telling us what you do.
Well, it's great to be here, so thank you for inviting me. Editing and proofreading. It's called so many different things. I'm a line editor and a proofreader. And usually editing happens towards the end of the process. Once you've gotten your story the way that you want it, when your chapters are all in the order that you want them in, that's when a line editor takes over, and a line editor will go line by line through the manuscript, not only looking for grammatical errors, but also looking for readability and things like sentence flow and sentence structure to make to preserve your voice and but make it easier for authors just to follow and immerse themselves in the story rather than getting caught up on sentence structure. And then a proofreader goes after the editor, and you might think that the editor, well, if you have it edited, why do you need it proofreaded? Because usually when editors are so focused on, the flow of the story, they tend to produce a volume of edits that makes it difficult for them to catch every little thing. And of course, they're human. They haven't trained AI to edit books yet, thank goodness. But a proofreader comes along behind the editor. They check for things like stray commas, spaces where they shouldn't be. Make sure that all your character names are spelled the same way. Look for typos, find quotation marks that are backwards, just like little things like that are easily overlooked by someone who's focused on something else, or by the author because they've seen this text so many times as they revised it that they're just kind of blind to some of the errors. And that's why editing and proofreading is important, because of that blindness. And authors can even introduce errors after the edit if they're just changing a little paragraph, and then they put a sentence in there that really needs a comma. And usually a proofreader will be like, let's stick a comma in there, just, satisfy it.
Yeah.
So that's great. So an example of a line edit, because you just edited one of my novels, would be like, I accidentally called two very minor characters the same thing. And one was at the beginning, one was at the end, and you caught that. And I just happened to like that name, I guess. So that might be more of a line edit. And then one mistake I always make is when I'm typing US, like short for United States, I can never remember whether you put the periods or not. And so, first of all, do you put the periods or not? And that would be more of a proofread type error, right?
The answer is it depends. It depends on which style guide that you're using. The Chicago Manual style, which is what I follow most of the time, used to say periods, but now it says, no periods is fine. So as long as it's consistent through the text, that's kind of the important thing. With US, I'll remove the periods just because.
Yeah. Well, and I know you said something really important a minute ago about how authors can reintroduce errors or are so caught up in reading for other things while they're writing. I've had writers ask me as a book coach, do I proofread or do line editing? And I say, absolutely not. You do not want me proofreading or line editing this, because I'm caught up on the much bigger issues as well. And I'm not reading for, is there a period in US, or I may catch a character's name or some of that stuff, but that's not what I'm looking for. And I think that's a really important distinction for authors to understand. There are different levels of work that's being done on a book.
Yeah, for sure. And for that very reason, I usually will not proofread a book that I've edited. For that very same reason, unless it's been like 6 months, so I haven't seen it, I've done a bunch of other things, then I'm a little more likely to take it on if someone really needs it in a pinch.
Yeah.
Well, I personally don't think anybody should publish a book without it being proofread, because for two reasons. You've read it so many times, you're not going to catch things. But also, you brought up Chicago Manual of Style. That is the manual of style that is used for novels. And it's huge. I mean, its book of rules is gigantic. And so to
Absolutely.
know all you have it.
Yeah, let's see it.
Oh, it's so heavy. Ugh.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to know everything in there. I even have a little cheat sheet that I use, but it's still overwhelming. And to have somebody who really knows what it should be like is important. And also, you do formatting things as well, like when you see errors, and that's really important. You want to talk about just what a few of those might be?
Oh, sure. Things like spaces at the end of sentences happens a lot. Random apostrophe and quotation marks that aren't like smart curly quotes, so they're just straight. Chapter headings, making sure that they're all the same style. And that's varying in dependency depending on how you're formatting your final book.
Mhm.
But I do it anyway because if they are going to be doing it a certain way, they need it to be the same. So yeah, stuff like that. Making sure that if the first line is indented everywhere, it's indented everywhere and not randomly not indented and things like that. Or yeah.
Right. You bring up an interesting point because when I started working with you, I would just send you my most recent Word document. And now I've gotten to where I'll format it in Atticus, which I use for formatting. And then I download that into a Word doc to send to you because that's kind of the final version that's going to be published. And I know you'll catch things if they're wrong.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
but
and
you can do it either way.
yeah, and this brings up something that I hadn't really thought about it and the importance of it. You stay up on how language is evolving, how punctuation evolves, how grammar evolves, because it's a moving target. And I mean, back in school, I don't even remember what the version of Chicago Manual of Style I was looking at 20 some odd years ago, but things have changed. And I'm sure, have you seen a lot of things change with self-publishing in what becomes consistent within a document, but may not be consistent in industry? Or how have you noticed that changes?
Yeah, I don't think I really have noticed much. Just a lot more people are writing sentences that start with and. That used to be a really big no-no, but it's not anymore. Like people have grown away from it. And I guess I see a little more internet slang than I used to in the books. So sometimes I'll make a note, be like, this, I know what this is, but the average reader might not.
And things like that are so important because, I always do all of your like formatting, grammar, or whatever, but you will say, hey, this isn't a real word. And maybe it's one I've meant to make up, but so I get to decide, but you always point it out so that, I know that there's a choice in there and also how an outsider will see that. So it's something I really appreciate about a proofread.
Yeah.
Yeah, and other things sometimes that pop up like the changing names for things. I did one, I don't remember if it was yours, where there was a stewardess mentioned. I'm like, I'm pretty sure you prefer flight attendant now, but just stuff like that, that as the language changes over time, people get twitchy nowadays about blonde with an E or not an E, like what should it be? Things like that. So
And that actually has changed because back in the olden days, it used to put the E on for girls and not for guys. And now they just don't want it, right?
just don't want it. Just leave it
Yeah.
off. But
Yeah.
they still like brunette. So for the PPE. So
Yeah, who knows
maybe
why?
one day.
Maybe one
Yeah,
day.
really.
Since we're coming to the end of our couple of minutes here, and I could keep asking you questions all day, right? But we know we don't want to do that. Is there one tip you would give writers to think about that they should do before they find a proofreader, or something that they can take away that would be actionable for them, like right now?
Oh gosh, that's a big question.
I
Before you
want to
hire a
jump in.
proofreader.
I want to jump in before she even answers that. Don't send your document to a proofreader until it is absolutely positively as clean as you can make it.
Yeah.
Because you want them to pick up those final errors, not to have to make a change on every sentence. But now, Lori, you answer.
That sort of is what I was going to
Yeah.
say. I was going to say, before you hire a proofreader, hire an editor. You don't need to do a line editor if you don't want them changing the flow of your sentences, but a copy editor that just looks for grammar and stuff can be so helpful unless you know that your document is really clean. I have a client that I do proofreads for who never has used an editor, and her stuff is always so clean. I don't know how she does it. But yeah.
Nice.
She is an outlier in that regard. We always think our stuff is cleaner than it is. I am a writer. I use an editor and a proofreader as well, because you get blind to it. You know, no matter how good your chops are, when it's your own stuff, it's really hard to do it by yourself.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming in and being here with us to talk about this, because I think a lot of writers don't they don't know how important it really is, especially with self-publishing, and you're trying to cut costs where you can, and having your work proofread, just it keeps you from getting those 1-star reviews of, you know, learn the difference between where and where.
Absolutely. And we will put Lori's information in the notes below the video.
Yeah, fabulous. Yeah, get your website up there so people can find you, because everybody needs you to help them. So, so thanks everybody for coming in this week and listening to us. When you hit subscribe on this page, we know that these videos have value. So please subscribe, and we'll keep making videos, and you'll keep getting 5-minute insights. Now go write. Do what we want you to be doing. Right.
Yeah. Thanks, Lori. Bye.
Lori, bye. Maybe. Maybe I'm stopping this.